1951 book titled The Rise of the Novel. But what exactly is formal realism? A term that we bandy about in discussion of many texts, not just 18th century ones. What does Watt have to say about formal realism? That's the subject of this short video. Now, Watt says that the novel's realism does not reside in the kind of life it presents, but in the way it presents it. So realism, formal realism, is a mode of presentation. It's a particular style of presentation, as it were. Now, Watt suggests that formal realism came through because of a few reasons. The first, of course, is philosophical, that it was fundamentally a reaction to the Lockean philosophy of sense experience and rational explanation of sense experience. So, formal realism is marked by a philosophical transition towards empiricism. The second fact that Watt points out is that it is integrally related with the triple rise thesis. The first is the rise of literacy, and we know that literacy jumps by 200% in 18th century England, as a result of which there is a rise of the middle class, which is involved in many professional activities, and therefore, a new middle class which demands its share of representation and forms a powerful new readership leads on to what is the form of the novel. Now, what is formal realism? What are the basic features? Watt says the collection of techniques by which authors began to represent a more particular and circumstantial view of life. And therefore, this particular and circumstantial view of life is marked by the following features: rejection of traditional plots of romance and allegory, the rejection of typed characters, and the presence of individuated subjective characters, very often, with the first person pronoun, using the autobiographical mode of narrative. Secondly, the particularization of time, so contemporaneity, dating, historicizing the experience. Turn towards historical specificity, particularization of space. So no longer is abstract grottos and castles, but particular times and places. Juan Fernandez Island in Defoe, and in Fielding's case, as the novel moves from Somersetshire to Upton and then to London. Very often London is the particular space in which these novels are located. And he also talks about the air of complete authenticity, right? So minor details, specific responses by specific individuals achieved through what Watt calls a different kind of a language. What kind of a language is this? It is marked by a descriptive and denotative use of language, especially through reportage and journalism. So a new way of language, descriptive, denotative. And what adds to this? The form of the letter that Richardson used, expression of the individual's private experience, representative of a larger change in outlook from the objective classical world to the individualist and private orientation of life and literature. So realism, formal realism, is marked by the private orientation of life and literature. And here, Watt traces the link between realism, formal realism, and Protestantism, because the Puritan sensibility emphasizes on inner light, produces an essentially man-centered world, according to Watt, one in which the individual was so responsible for his own scale of moral and social values. Therefore, this individualism, which would be later on defined as possessive individualism, weakens communal and traditional relationships. If you trace a look, Crusoe just renounces his family and moves away. Fostered not only the kind of private and egocentric mental life, but also the stress on importance of personal relationships, which is so characteristic of both modern society and the novel. Thus, let me conclude, therefore, that for what formal realism is the premise or primary convention that the novel is full of an authentic report of human experience and therefore is particularized within time and space. Formal realism rose because of a particular philosophical climate, a particular philosophical flux. Formal realism used certain tropes of representation and revolutionized the way in which individual experience would be narrated. And formal realism was largely implicated with the rise of Protestantism and the individual moral evaluation of experience. So there you go. That is formal realism for you, a mode which would be the most dominant form of narrativity in the subsequent centuries to come, till modernism came and challenged it big time. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this lecture. Thank you, and tune in for more such short videos. Thank you very much for watching.